The Lord bless you.
Alexis Herman, born 77 years ago in Mobile, Alabama, was remembered for not only making history when President Jimmy Carter selected her to lead the Women's Bureau at the Labor Department, but for breaking through a glass ceiling, becoming the first Black woman to head the U.S. Department of Labor a decade later.
I found a memo that she wrote. It recommended that the first thing we do was to push the passage of the Family and Medical Leave Act.
She worked hard. She asked tough questions. She told you the truth, even when you didn't necessarily want to hear it.
She spoke the language of labor and of liberation. She understood that work is sacred, that dignity is not reserved for the wealthy.
And once she reached a new level, she always turned around to see who was behind her and extended her hand to help them climb.
Well, hello, professionals. I am Dr. Erica Burks, and I am the Chief HR Officer of Be Professional Consultancy. We are here to have an important discussion with you, but before I get ahead of myself, let me pass the mic to my lovely co-founder.
Hello, professionals. My name is Dr. Ellison. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Be Professional Consultancy, and we have a very hot topic we wanted to talk to you about today. How are you, Dr. Burks? I have missed you. We have done some videos solo, so you've had quite a few HR-specific videos, and I've had some leadership videos, but I am so blessed to be doing a video. I've missed you. I have a lot of HR material in my videos, and I'm like, I miss my partner. Where's she at? So I'm so glad to be recording with you today.
I am too. I feel a little rusty almost to, realize I'm not doing this by myself, but it has absolutely been a pleasure for us to be able to showcase our expertise individually, but I'm always down to return to our roots and do this thing together. So I'm excited.
All right. Well, professionals, the topic we are going to be talking about is trends. We're going to be talking about some trends that we've noticed in the business industry. Dr. Burks will be coming from her human resource expertise, and I'll be talking from business strategy and the leadership perspective. But I did want to start with the scripture. We like to operate from a biblical worldview. Our scripture for today comes from Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 9 through 10, and it reads, "History merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here is something new, but actually it is old. Nothing is ever truly new." And what I really like about that scripture from Ecclesiastes, especially as we talk about trends and trending topics and trends in the business sector, is that even though we may think something is trending, or Dr. Burks and I have noticed trends, there's really nothing new under the sun. And the scripture teaches us that even though we may say, or the industry may say, here's something new, actually is old. And God put Adam to work. He gave him a field and told him to tend to it. So as long as there has been work and there have been people here in this earth, there have been things going on in the business industry, and probably likely some of these trends as well. And it is custom and practice for us to always start off with a baseline set of definitions. And as we are talking about trends today, I do want to define trend. So trend is both a noun and a verb. And trend means what you think it means, a general direction in which something is developing or changing. Of course, we think of trends as we think about fashion, or a trend is a change or develop in a general direction. So we could trend and change. And I really like to go from the dictionary to the thesaurus. So a trend could be a tendency, a movement, a drift, a swing, a shift. And so as Dr. Burks and I talk about the trends that she's observed and the ones that I have observed, this will just kind of set the stage for what we mean when we talk about trends. So to move, to go, to head, to drift, right? All right, Dr. Burke. So we will start with you and
Okay.
get your first take on a trend that you have observed in the business industry.
So, Dr. Ellison Professionals just actually touched on this topic in her video last Monday. But a huge trend that I am seeing is skill-based hiring. So, this is a trend because in this I don't want to say economy, but where we are in the business world, it is so much easier to find professionals who have skills that you can foster and fine tune to be able to do the job than to limit the talent pool by only focusing on people who have a certain degree or a certain amount of years of experience. Because in all actuality, in my experience, it is so much easier to hire someone who has the skill set and pay them more money, but from a financially wise, I guess you can say, to be strategic, you can hire someone who may not have the experience or the degree, invest in training and developing them, and then pay them less long term than they would have paid the more seasoned professional. Does it mean that I don't want to say unseasoned, but the less tenured professional is not as effective or worth or as in terms of value? No, it just simply means you might have to invest in one more than the other. So I saw a article by Deloitte, and they pretty much said that they're using the skill-based hiring as a means to empower people to actually apply versus dispositioning themselves or disqualifying themselves from a opportunity. So what do you think about that, Dr. Ellison?
Mm, I wasn't expecting you to take it there, but skills is definitely a trending topic as we talk about trends in the business sector. As a matter of fact, this past week, the Secretary for the Department of Labor sat before Congress and they questioned her about the budget. They questioned her about where we were headed labor wise. And that was one of the things that they talked about and that she talked about was where we were going with Job Corps. And one of the things that she mentioned was that they were looking to showcase a worker skill set and that you can get ahead in life. You can get ahead without necessarily having completed your college education yet. You can participate in Job Corps and you can take on these apprenticeships. And if you follow us on our LinkedIn page, I just reposted something from the Department of Labor that talked about actually how to apply for some of these apprenticeships. So I wasn't expecting you to go there, but having skills and the ability to showcase your skills is definitely one of those trends that I think needs to be talked about in the business sector, especially coming from you as an HR expert.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I absolutely agree. And I love the perspective that you come from as a leader and just the difference of perspective. And then ultimately, we both have a goal to help the business run more efficiently. We just have a different approach, and our mindsets, I feel, are aligning more fluidly when we realize we just need to focus on the skill and develop the talent ourselves.
Yes. Now, professionals, my list is what I would probably think is slightly controversial. So, but we'll see what Dr. Burks has to say. So, one of the trends on my list is followers. So
Mhm.
there is a growing trend of individuals that are constantly seeking followers, but they're not leading anybody anywhere. There's a growing trend of people that want titles. They want to be labeled as executives or managers or leaders or team leaders. They want to have these titles without the responsibility that goes with having that title. So, for example, having the title of manager may require you to have to shield your employees from some of the bureaucracy that happens within the organization. Sometimes you and oftentimes you will have to advocate and demonstrate personal courage on behalf of those who report to you. And I've just noticed that there is a growing trend of people that want to have people following them, especially as we look at the growing amount of people that want to be social media influencers or taking their profession to the other side of the camera, and they want subscribers, they want follower, hey, follow me, but then they're not really leading people anywhere. Or I would say they are leading people somewhere, but where they're leading people doesn't result in their followers growing and developing on their own. What do you think about that, Dr. Burks?
That was actually ironic that you mentioned that. A few days ago, I saw a video, and this gentleman was stating that, everybody wants to idolize these influencers, everybody wants to be like the influencers. But then he said, but what's influencing them? What are you connecting yourself to by watching them? Something is influencing them. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's honest. It doesn't mean that it's morally right, I guess I should say. But the way it's portrayed, people want the fame, they want the notoriety, and they don't look at the sacrifices or the things that some of these influencers have tied themselves to fulfill that. I like to use, or I think what's appropriate is when you think about Dr. Ellison spoke about her first position being in a supply, or I shouldn't say supply chain, a restaurant chain. And when you think about it, have you ever seen a altercation, or let's say somebody's food was messed up and they start to get upset, and then they start to take that frustration out on their waiter or waitress, and then you say, go get your manager, or they go and bring their manager. And the manager's job is to lead. And sometimes, like Dr. Ellison said, you may get the brunt of the frustration, and you had nothing to do with it, but it just comes with the role. So if you want to manage, you have to manage. You can't be a leader if you're not leading your team somewhere. And it sounds good. Everybody wants the new job title just so they can throw it on their LinkedIn and resume. But what are you actually doing to equip your team to be able to follow you? What are you doing to influence succession planning? It's just all about influence, but no execution, and what is your end goal. So I think that's the part that a lot of things get missed in these conversations. It sounds good, but that doesn't mean it's all good. Just like they say, all money isn't good money. All influencers aren't really influencing you, and all leaders aren't leading. Sorry, Doctor. I
Right.
feel like I went off on a tangent.
No, I mean, that's actually a good one and a trending one. And I have a stat for you that will probably blow your mind, or maybe it won't. What's your next trend?
So mine are very business focused, of course. So another trend that I've seen is the use of subscription services. So going back to the influencer and people just wanting to make profit, I've seen a rise of people putting out subscription services. So here's the thing, let me paint a picture. Dr. Ellison and I have given consistent content. So I believe by now, professionals, if you follow us on any form of social media, you know exactly what you would be getting from us consistently. Well, there are some people who deem themselves to be influencers and to have some type of clout or whatever the case may be. And so they'll say, subscribe to whatever, and you'll get exclusive content. So once upon a time, you would commonly see month-to-month subscriptions. Now you are seeing them wanting you to commit to a year, but giving you the monthly amount based on what's here. And research shows, and Dr. Ellison and I will have it linked in this video, that is financial security. So even though you don't know the content you're getting, you only know what the influencer or social media presence has shown you, but it is legitimately establishing that as a security in terms of income. So with us, we can show you through history what you will get if you subscribe, or if you invest in us, or if you book with us, partner with us. But some of these people on social media, they show you something that may be a fallacy, you don't know, and then you subscribe to it, and you've given your money, and now you're stuck with this subscription. So I'm seeing that as being a frequency in businesses now, not even necessarily to provide consistent products, but to just make sure they secure their money up front. Dr. Ellison?
What a trend. I thought my list was going to be slightly controversial, but this one right here, because we live in an information age, and it's just, you don't know nowadays if you're being scammed. I see people that have these subscriptions, and then come to find out you're paying this monthly subscription and you're not getting anything different than you would get if you didn't have the subscription, except for maybe I'm not getting the ads. But I would probably rather have the ads, because it's not like you're adding any additional value to my life. And it's like a lot of times they give you these teasers like, well, if you subscribe, like you're going to get all this extra insight to something, and then you just find out you're not getting anything additional. And there's so many scammers right now, so I couldn't think of a better trend. This one is a really good one, Dr. Burks. But yes, this is definitely a trend, which is why Dr. Burks and I are always encouraging you to study, because it is difficult to find trustworthy sources in this day and age, especially when some of our platforms that we're used to have kind of taken the guardrails off of the fact checking. So you don't know what is fact, what is not fact. And I have a stat for you later that will probably round all of this out.
All right. What you
All
got, Dr.
right. So the next trend I have is a word, and I am a woman that loves words, as you can probably tell. I always have a definition. And this word is obstinate. And this is a trend that I see all the time in the workplace or business sector. And basically, to sum that word up, it's people's opinion being greater than the truth. So your eyes see it, but your tendency is to believe your opinion more than the fact, more than the truth. So your eyes are telling you that you see something, but it's like, no, I'm going to go based off this person's opinion, or they're a social media influencer, or they're a business person or an author, and they have 4.1 million followers, even though I see over here prices of eggs are rising, or I see over here this thing is happening. I'm not going to lean on what I know the truth to be. I'm going to stick to whatever opinions are there. And I just note that to be a trend that I happen to see a lot in the business industry, especially where it regards businesses having workers, especially leaders, that don't even know their own policies. So you'll believe your opinion, or the opinion or stated word of an executive or a manager rather than what the actual policy says.
Mhm.
And that is a trend upon trend. And it seems like that is one of them trends that just don't ever seem to go away. What do you think about that one, Dr. Burks?
You just triggered me, because oftentimes and in former videos, we spoke about learning policies and compliance requirements for yourself. And it just astounds me that there are still people who are okay with receiving secondhand information and just trusting it. And there have been so many instances in my career that people are relying on their managers to give them policy, and then half of the time what their managers are upholding or guiding them, or whatever standard expecting them to uphold, isn't even accurate, or they cherry pick the policy, or they make interdepartmental policies that are more strict than the organization's policy. And then you run into, well, you let her do it or him do it, and now I want to. I mean, it is like I can write literally a book just on this example. But to add, since we are, emphasizing social media, and I don't want you all to think we're picking on social media, but social media is like at the core of our day-to-day lives. People have access to social media. I mean, you typically, it's rare that you don't see someone on the phone. So I think the most important thing that I've observed is people aren't looking for information or validity on their own. You can get on TikTok, have someone go over an entire story and be content and never check to see if what they said was true, or they can give you an interpretation of a scripture, and half the time people aren't going and reading it for themselves. So you are entrusting somebody else's interpretation or whatever version or standpoint they want you to see, and you just run with it. And that's scary, because these are people who are legitimately leaders, and this is the workforce, when you think about it, that we're seeing grow up and go to school or go into the workforce in general. And these are the leaders, these are the people who will eventually take over our economy. And do you feel, Dr. Ellison, that we have created a culture where people can lead, or people can be self-efficient or vet? And I know I'm biased because we had to rely on facts. We couldn't give opinions in our programs. So what do you think about that?
Well, what I think is that what you're hitting on is another one of my trends, and that is no accountability. So when there's no accountability, I think that it does lend itself to exactly what you're describing there, because, I don't, I am the biggest proponent of AI. I love my smartwatch, my cell phone, you can ask Dr. Burks. I am a woman of technology, but I think that it should be leveraged to enhance us, not to try to replace us. Me having technology doesn't replace me having to read these books on my shelf and study. Leveraging technology doesn't mean that I ignore the truth that is in front of my face. I see it. I see things happening in front of me that are wrong. I'm choosing to ignore policies, practices, and procedures,
Mhm.
and opting for the opinion
Mhm.
of myself or others.
Mhm.
That's what I think about that one, Dr. Burks.
That's a mic drop. Um, and I agree 100%. My sentiments are the same. And you actually just touched on one of my trends, and that is AI in the workforce. So I'm
Ooh.
pretty sure everybody has heard about AI. They have treated AI taking over like Armageddon. I feel like it's Y2K all over again. But we are in a world now where you can't escape it. And it's so funny because a friend of mine went to a fast food chain, right? And when she got to the drive-through, the menu, a voice, a computerized voice, took her order. And it wasn't until she got to the window that she actually had an encounter with a human. And so it's so funny because people feel threatened that AI will take over, but you can't replace the human experience. So people aren't looking at how to leverage AI to maybe improve processes. They're looking at it and automatically assuming it's going to take my job. You are human. I don't care how advanced the technology is. I don't care how much money they invest in the formulation of it. They cannot replace a human. And so companies are being forced to conform or to implement AI. And I always say, I love my companies that are still stone and chisel. They just do not want anything computerized. They don't want anything electronic. However, more and more companies are having to make the transition to implementing AI because it's popular. So now it's almost like if you don't have it, then you're out of touch. But companies, they have to learn how to use it to advance their business, and it should not be a threat. You should not ever feel like AI can replace you. Now, on the contrary, some companies have implemented AI and eliminated, a great amount of positions. That has happened. I won't negate that. However, they still need humans. They can't eliminate every human and entrust everything to AI. So you don't have to look at it as a threat. AI could never be you. What do you think, Dr. Ellison?
What a awesome trend to have on your list. And this goes without saying that everything that you implement in your organization should have a strategy attached to it. And that includes implementing new technologies. So if you are going to implement a new technology such as AI or anything else automated for that matter, what is going to be the strategy that you use? And as we talked about, organizations have a mission and they have a vision, and that vision requires change. And so, as we talked about at the top of our trend list, Dr. Burks mentioned skills. That means that the individual person, us, we have to be looking forward to see the type of skills that we have. Are they advancing? Do I need to upskill? Do I need to learn something new? Because the computer may now be taking McDonald's orders or some other fast food chain orders, or the robot may come and serve you at Chipotle, for example. So what other skill do you have that can't be replaced, or do you need to pivot and do something else? Because as time goes on, organizations are going to shift. We're not going to stay in the Stone Ages. Change, as I mentioned in one of our other videos, is not a bug. It is a necessary feature. And so as we talk about AI and technology, the best thing to do is to leverage technology. Dr. Burks?
I mean, I don't have anything to add to that. You touched on everything. And it's so funny because I was at a hot pot restaurant. Absolutely love them. And so you go, the menu, you have to scan the QR code. Nobody's handing you a piece of paper. Nobody's coming and taking your order. And then after you add everything to the cart, you place the order, and then a robot comes and gives you your plates, your chopsticks, all of the food that you ordered in your order, and you hit OK. It turns around and it goes back to its charging base. And it took me aback initially, but then I thought about, well, that saves time because now the waitress can go and greet and do other things. But then I realized it's not replacing anybody because the human still has to program them. The human still has to tell them what table to come to. So it still requires the interaction and I don't want to say influence, but it still requires the role of a human being to still tell it how to operate. So it is automated, but it is not solo. It is not independent of a human touch. if that makes sense.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes. You're so right. Because I went back to my college campus, and my husband and I were just, walking around to the gift shop and whatnot, and we saw these little robots, just little tiny robots just rolling around with bags on top of them. And we're like, what is that? What's going on? Because, we're walking around college campus and obviously we're older than college age. And come to find out, these little robots that were rolling around campus was like a DoorDash service. So the robots was delivering food to the students on campus. So you are absolutely right. And how safe is that? It's better than somebody knocking on your, daughter's door. It's a robot with some food on it. But as you stated, it's going to require someone to prepare the food, make sure that it gets out on time, make sure that the robot gets the repairs that it needs. So where one job is maybe become obsolete, it opens up another type of industry. So what a wonderful trend that was, Dr. Burks. Which segues into the next trend on my list. And I was tempted to say that we are not reading enough, but I decided to fact check myself. And so my next trend is not studying. So I did some research. There is a 2022 Gallup survey that says that reading hasn't declined not too much since the 60s and 70s. The steepest decline in reading is actually college graduates. So they've experienced the steepest decline in reading, which to me is very interesting, because if we want anybody reading and studying more, it is our engineers, it's our doctors, it's our lawyers, it's Dr. Burks and I should be reading and studying more, not less, right? And it just reminds me of the 2024 word of the year, which was brain rot. So we have replaced highly intellectual information with low quality information. So a lot of videos. And I alluded to some statistics that I was going to share. And what you have before you is an image. And it says that TikTok is the #1 search engine for more than half of Generation Z. So overall, 74% of Generation Z uses TikTok as their search engine. So the three biggest reasons why is the video format, it's relatable answers, and it's personalized answers. And on the surface, I would say there's nothing wrong with that, except for if you take a look further at this research, professionals. What we found out is that Generation Z trusts influencers and brands more than family and friends. So over 70% looks to influencers, over 62% looks to brands, and a little bit over 61% is someone I trust. What is the problem? If you go back to a video Dr. Burks and I did several months ago, we talked about some legal issues TikTok had because they were sowing disinformation and misinformation. So if this app, and this is only one app that I'm mentioning out of other apps you can find in your app store on Google, Apple, whatever platform that you use. This is only one of many apps. And so if there is a prevalence of misinformation and disinformation, and this has replaced popular apps for search engines, not studying enough, in my opinion, is a top trend and could present itself in the business sector as a huge problem for us. So when I say not studying, it goes back to that scripture that I read at the top, that there's nothing new under the sun. History doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And so we have to be constantly studying and not just going to TikTok, not just going to Instagram, not just going to Facebook, not just going to pick your app that you like to search in. We have to be looking at multiple platforms, multiple authors, peer review, to make sure that we're getting the most accurate information. Just like I told you, when I heard the Department of Labor say something, guess where I heard it from? She was sitting before Congress. I heard her with my own two ears. I didn't just wait to go on Google and see what somebody else had to say. I heard her say those things for myself. What do you think about that, Dr. Burks?
I think that's a really good example, because when you think about it, when you rely on secondhand information, these people, like let's you say you said Google as a resource, they're highlighting what they feel to be the key parts of the speech or the conversation, whereas that could leave out a lot of critical information that would be important for you to know. But again, going back to, people will cherry pick the information and share what they feel is important. So if all you do is go by the synopsis of somebody else, there's a great deal of information you miss out on. To touch on the college thing, this is not fact-based. This is just my little humble opinion. But I feel that a lot of times that I've seen people who are so focused on getting through the program just to have this degree or this certificate, but they have no game plan of like how they're going to proceed with aligning themselves in their career, in their field. And I think for a lot of people, and this is just based off of conversations and interviews, and but they do just enough to finish. And if their field does not require more, then they give just enough to finish. Now, when we're talking about doctors or lawyers or not radiologists, I should say, RTs or whatever the case may be, their nurses, their studies don't end when they finish school. There's additional work and clinicals and shadowing and all of that, residencies that they have to continue to do. They have to continuously take trainings and put in hours. Like, they don't have a choice. You don't finish school and that's it. They are required to stay abreast of trends. And, so it's not just that easy to say, I'm a doctor, I'm done, or I'm a so-and-so and I'm done. Dr. Ellison and I have to stay, and she is so much greater at this than me, I will be completely honest with you. But we even have to be mindful as we're having a conversation about business trends, because as we partner with you professionals, how could we tell you or talk to you about any of these things and we haven't vetted it ourselves? So it is important. Though we are giving you, this information, we also provide you links and tools and resources that you could use so that you can also educate yourselves. So, Dr. Ellison, I think that was an excellent point to mention, and it is very, very important. I don't think that gets mentioned enough.
Yes. And your next trend?
This is my last one, unfortunately, but it pertains to marketing. So this may overlap slightly with AI or technology, but if you pay attention, companies are having to be more creative. They are changing approaches to how they network and how they throw out a net and see who they can bring in. People who never really highlighted minorities. And I'm not just talking about ethnicity or race, but I'm talking about gender. I'm talking about age. I'm talking about those who have disabilities. Now, all of a sudden, you see them popping up everywhere. You never saw them, people that didn't have clothing or different items that were produced by minorities. Now they're popping up everywhere. So it's almost like being able to discern the difference between them really trying to expand and show people like, I have this, like, you're welcome. I want you to patronize my business because I have you in mind. And then you have those people who do it because it's popular, again, utilizing the majority on social media. Prime example, let's go to TikTok. Hold on, let me fix myself because I'm passionate about this. So on TikTok, you see all of these influencers doing ads, giving their links, telling you about this product. They make it personal. They converse and they approach you where it's appealing, and then the next thing you know, it's in your cart and you order it, and then it's either ugly or nasty, but you trusted the opinion of let's say 1 to 5 people, and you made a purchase or an educated decision, and now you don't like it. I feel like this is what a lot of businesses are leveraging to be able to expand their, product or service. And these influencers, they could care less if you end up liking it. Like, of course, it helps their credibility, but as long as they do their ad and it's a certain amount of time, if people are clicking on that link and ordering, it's money, it's profit. And they're very intentional about who they market to. They're very intentional about what the audience looks like. They are taking whatever measure that they can to compel you to buy their service. There's a famous, very well-known store brand, or I should say, a franchise. And after D&I, you saw a lot of people who are minorities there. When that was dismantled, you saw a lot of it removed from the store. I'll put it that way. I look up and now I'm seeing ads and videos, and it's showing a Black hand, and never seen that before D&I was dismantled. And now all of a sudden you're trying to showcase, and it almost made me feel like, hey, I have Black people come here. African Americans come here. See, we're inclusive, but it's like, this is the first time I've ever seen you take this marketing approach. And so are you desperate? Are you that desperate to get people to patronize your business again, that you are willing to just completely step outside of your norm just to help recoup a lot of the money that you lost? What do you think, Dr. Ellison?
If this isn't a trend, I don't know what is. And especially marketing is a huge part of business and its profitability. And what you have before you, professionals, I talked about that survey earlier, there is a hashtag, TikTok made me buy it, is real and huge. So it says TikTok reported it and got 12.4 billion views. So nearly 3 out of 4 Generation Zers bought something after seeing it on TikTok. So 72% purchase a product after seeing it on TikTok. So that goes back to what you talked about, Dr. Burks, and marketing. And it also goes back to what I talked about, and that is studying, because it seems like we live in a day and age where there's a lot of fraud and theft, and it seems like we live in a day and age where companies and people and individuals can be bought, especially people that want followers. And if you are looking to purchase things, I would hope that you are seeking companies that actually care about you and your community, because of a lot of these companies don't. They are going to go to where they think your eyeballs are. For example, the statistic that I just read you from TikTok, if that's where they think eyeballs and dollars are, that's where they're going to go, because they know that you're going to buy it. Once you buy it, you can't take it back, and the money is gone. They made it and they're rich and you're not, and that's it. And so that is definitely a huge trend when it comes to marketing in business and studying. And it is unfortunate, Dr. Burks, is that when it does come to marketing and making money, especially in this economy, sometimes there's not very much integrity in it.
I almost shouted. No, you are absolutely right. And, there are people who you establish this trust with their followers or their supporters or whatever they choose to call them. And these companies are very intentional. You see plus size content creators, so you're always going to see Spanx or this outfit. It comes in all of these different sizes because the assumption is that a lot of their following are also plus size people. Or you have people that like to do content with eating, or mukbangs, better known as, where they're sending them a lot of food items. So they're big on studying. They know where the views are coming from. You typically don't see these advertisements or people who are making these connections or partnerships if they don't have a certain amount of followers. Like, they are very strategic with studying you, so you have to also be mindful. And you know what, if you order these things and you don't like it or it doesn't look right, the only accountability the influencer has is, well, it was good to me, or it looked right on me. I can't account for your experience. Let me tell you, I am so adamant with perfume. I have been burnt enough with sight unseen purchases. I'm reading the notes in the perfume. I want to know what the ingredients are. I don't care about the 5-star reviews. I'm starting with the 1, and then I'll work my way up. I'm looking at, okay, the cost. I'm checking different platforms. If I see it on Amazon for cheaper, then I see it on this, then I'm going to buy it. I am looking at the seller and making sure it's an authorized seller. And it's a shame that we have to do that, but it's important that we do, because we are in a place where money is tight. I don't care, unless you are out here making billions and trillions of dollars. I'm very mindful of where my dollar goes because I have a family. As you know, as Dr. Ellison is, she's very fiscally responsible, in my opinion, probably more than me. But if I'm going to patronize, I hate to keep using that word, but if I'm going to give you my dollars, then I need to make sure that I'm going to be satisfied, because some people have strict return policies. I don't want to feel like I get screwed. And so, unfortunately, that's what we are dealing with present day. But I don't have money to waste. I really don't. And who do you complain to? Because there's no accountability, because it is up to you to discern between if this smells good or not, versus going to a perfume counter where you can actually smell it and make the decision based off of what you smell. You are utilizing somebody else's nose to make your decision for you.
And it's so crazy because a lot of the team members that I work with are from Generation Z, and I love Gen Z. I love you guys so much. But there is a reason why that is a target demographic. There is a reason why there is a concerted effort to keep you from reading, to keep you distracted. There is a psychology behind marketing, and a lot of people don't know that. When I was in my undergrad business program, one of the courses, the first courses that I took was a marketing course. And in that particular course, they talked about why the arches on a particular fast food restaurant are yellow. And they talked about the colors, they talked about the symbols, the signs, all of the things, that there is a psychology behind marketing. And believe it or not, certain demographics of people are targeted. And the less you read, the less you know, the less you study, the less selective you are, the less competition there is, the more easy it is for them to convince you to do things that you probably otherwise wouldn't do, purchase things you otherwise wouldn't purchase. And so that's just a little note. I mean, at the end of the day, for those of you that are within that population that are adults, and hey, it happens to us adults too, because someone from the boomer generation sent me a video the other day, and the voice in the video sounded really familiar, but within about 2 sentences, I said, this is not that person. And I went to the notes and it said, this is an automated generated voice and image. And I said to that person, I sent that person a message. I said, you do know that this is not that person, right? And they said, really? It sounds just like that person.
That's the goal.
And that's another reason why we have to be careful, because people can take our name, image, and likeness, and you may say that sounds just like Dr. Ellison, but that's not her. And I had fortunately had the benefit of having listened to this person's teachings over the course of several decades. So I knew their cadence. I knew their pitch and their tone, and something was off about that person's cadence. Even though the voice sounded exactly like that person, it wasn't that person. And so we just live in a day and age, professionals, where we have to be careful out here in these streets where it regards technology. As much as we love to use it, we just do have to be wary that there are people in this world who do not have good intentions. But that will lead me to my last trend, and I do have a bonus one, a small bonus one, but this is my last one, and it is no accountability or lack of accountability. And I don't know if this will stop being a trend. It seems like it is trending more and more and more in the business sector. And what I have before you, professionals, is an article from the Los Angeles Times, and it says Google settles lawsuit alleging bias against Black employees. And it says Google agreed to pay $50 million to settle a lawsuit alleging the search engine giant was racially biased against Black employees. And this is just one example of one company, and this just happened to be a recent article, which is why I selected it. This is not the only company, and the company does say that this is alleged bias, that they are saying that it's not true, but there were over 4,000 Black employees that said that there was bias against them, and they had specific instances of them not being googly enough. But the reason why I am showcasing this particular article, as Dr. Burks talked about how things are trending in marketing, and that conversation that we just had, we recently did a video about merit. And that video had a lot to do with accountability and performance appraisals and policies, practices, and procedures, and understanding, civil rights and medical leave rights and pregnancy rights. And we walked through all of those things. And this is one of those things. So how did this company, for example, have this lawsuit against all of these thousands of employees? And I'm just using this as a case study for us professionals. But part of having a merit-based workplace means that we have to have policies and reporting procedures and systems in place to make sure that we are creating an environment where we make merit possible. But when there's no accountability to be had, how can you have a merit-based system? And I find that to be a trend that is actually trending now, especially as Dr. Burks just mentioned what she talked about in marketing, and as she talked about some of the diversity initiatives that are taking place. What do you think about no accountability, Dr. Burks?
Ooh, that is a loaded question. So I'm trying to keep up with some of the examples. So I often find it funny that these organizations expect to hold their staff accountable when the business itself is not accountable. And have you noticed, professionals, how you typically, things have to go viral for things to happen? I think we are seeing less integrity and accountability with a lot of these organizations, and it takes for the majority or a great amount of people, or for things to hit social media and visibility to be increased, for them to act. So thinking about the lawsuit with Google, if that had only been a few hundred people, then would it have produced a $50 million settlement? More than likely not. How often do you see organizations come out and say, you know what, I messed up, I'll own that? You don't. And so it is, essentially vital, I guess I should say, that you practice what you preach. And you can't expect accountability when you are not showing accountability. And, for us, I feel like we operate, like Dr. Ellison said, from a biblical worldview. And then we also operate with understanding we are not perfect, but we also understand that we can own any of our mistakes. Perfection does not live on this side of heaven. So you will have stumbling blocks, but what are you doing to own up to it and then also rectify it? That means a lot more to the foundation of your business. What are you living up to your missions and goals? Are you not just practicing what you're preaching, but are you being an example? Would another organization look at you and think like, darn, I need to step my game up. I'm not as competitive as I need to be. What are you doing? And what example are you setting? And I think that piece gets missed a lot. You should not have to gather the masses and have all of these things documented and essentially beat the horse as much as possible to finally feel like, I can't fight it. Let me go ahead. And a lot of organizations want to settle any disputes because they don't want it to get outside. They would rather keep it contained. So anywho, I just really think that accountability is just not common. It really isn't. And I'm more surprised and I have a lot more respect when I see someone in general, take the organization out of it, that comes forward and says, you know what? I messed up. That is on me. I have no excuse. That makes me advocate for you even more because you own it. And when you lie about it and when you deflect, it makes it difficult for me to feel sympathy for you because you are intentionally being dishonest. Dr. Ellison.
Yes, that's awesome. And my bonus trend is underestimating individual power. And this is a trend. So, as an individual, we have the power within us to read and study for ourselves, take accountability for ourselves and those that we're responsible for, if possible. That when we see the truth happening before us, we can lean into the truth. We don't have to be following those that are walking down the wrong path. We can make corrections on the spot as we see fit. And just knowing that there's nothing new under the sun, that we have to take responsibility and accountability for ourselves. We are created in His image, and His image is creative. It is innovative. It is insightful. It is wise. And so I just think that that is a trend that we can definitely scratch off of the bottom of this list. And that is underestimating our individual power. And I hope that that is encouraging to you professionals. Dr. Burks?
I have nothing left to add to that. You are absolutely right. I love the underdog. You just never know who knows who. You never know what's capable. And Dr. Ellison and I talk about your God-given purpose and contribution and talent. Never assume that someone doesn't have as much influence because they don't have the same amount of followers, or because they don't have a big friend group, or because they don't have a long resume. Just don't assume. You never know. And that's why I love me a good underdog where people counted them out, or where I had to convince the manager to entertain or interview them. And the proudest moment is when they go in there and rock it and they come back and say, you know what? You're right. I love those. I love my I told you so moments. I don't say that, but I love them because people will find reasons to discount you, and everything you can't take at face value. Some people are excellent at presenting their best selves. I say they put on their Sunday best in an interview, and then they start working and they're totally different people. So no, I agree, Dr. Ellison. I like that. That was a good trend.
Yes, I love that one. And I'm so excited for what you all are going to do next, professionals. Stay encouraged always and encourage others. And as always, be professional.
Be professional. Absolutely.